Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics with the Easy Piece Table Runner for February. And of course, hearts and the dove and the beautiful red and pink fabrics. I had so much fun putting this together. The fabrics you're seeing are Brave Heart by Edith Zitar from Andover. I love that collection. It just has a lot to offer and they look so pretty together. So of course, we're well into our series now. You'll want to make sure you download this if you'll be using your own fabrics. If you're buying the kit, of course, those instructions will automatically be included for you. And all of the applique pieces, including the intricate lettering that says love, will already be cut out for you. That's one of the beautiful parts about buying one of the kits, is especially because the laser cut pieces are already pre-fused with heat and bond light and cut out for you. You can jump right into the fun, and it just makes putting the applique portion together so fast, so easy that you can start stitching right away. But more about the applique in just a bit. Let's jump right into the block. Let's look at the runner. I did two of the blocks exactly the same in the same fabrics, and then the block in the center has slightly different fabrics, but of course the construction of how the block goes together is the same for all three blocks. So once we have your pattern downloaded, and if you're brand new, just now finding us on YouTube, or maybe you've come to the website, you can download that pattern. Shabby Fabrics homepage at the very bottom, click on the free downloads. You're looking for the Easy Piece Table Runner for February, or if you're on our website, there should be a link right below the video that just says download the pattern. You can click there and download it as well. So full color, we've tried to make that easy for you to follow along, and we're gonna jump right into the measurements. So this block will actually get cut twice. If you've been watching the Easy Piece Table Runner series before now, we typically piece the block together and cut it kind of one time. We may cut it around four sides, but we only do that rotation, complete rotation once. This will happen twice, so this is really fun. We'll start off with a 9 patch. We've cut our fabrics out ahead of time, and you'll just lay those out in a 9 patch, just mimicking our picture. So you'll lay them out as you normally would, just assuring you've got everything where you want it to be. I highly recommend you always do that, because every time I think, oh, I've already got that figured out, I don't need to lay that out ahead of time, I'm wrong, and I sew it together. And of course, you've seen me do plenty of seam ripping on camera, and I'm trying to minimize how much I'm doing moving forward by just being more careful, making sure my layout is where I want it to be. Now, just to point out, everything will be pressed open. Sometimes we've done blocks in the past where pressing in one direction or the other was important. This is super simple. We'll be pressing the seams open all throughout the block assembly from beginning to end. Lay out your 9 patch, and of course you'll sew your rows together, and then you'll sew all of that together into a 9 patch. There's our seams in the back, just pressed open, so it's just like you would expect. Nothing new or different there. And now we will begin cutting our block. And I want to point out something that's a little bit different about this one than we've done before. In the past, we've had typically a center seam, and we measure from the center seam over a certain distance. But as you can see from this block, I don't have my center seam to line up on. So per our instructions on our step 2, once our 9 patches sewn together, which is in our step 1, in our step 2, I want to point out we're going to cut 1.5 inches over from this seam. There is no center seam to line up from, so we'll line up our 1.5. I'll be using this side of the ruler with the block dots toward me because I have a nice 1.5 there already. So I'm going to use the beauty of the Creative Grid ruler to help me be successful, and I'm lining up my 1.5 on now this side seam, and I'll go ahead and cut my 1.5, and I will rotate, and I will do that again all the way around. Actually, look at that. I only really had to make the 2 cuts and I'm already there. Fantastic. Let's go back up to the top. I'm so used to cutting 4 times, but when you have it cutting, it's already in 4 sections. So I'm going to break those apart. So we're now at step 3. So let's look and make sure we're following along. Is this Oh, it looks like I moved something. So I see how I did that? I already laid that out wrong. I didn't rotate my mat back. So again, I've avoided making a potential seam, having to seam rip. Let's lay that out to make sure we're matching our picture right here. And this is where we'll insert some other squares that we would have cut ahead of time. Of course, our pattern will give you those measurements. And let's put those in place right now. We have 4 of our creams and 1 of our red. And these will come into place. And our block is now going to grow. We'll piece it together and we'll be cutting it back apart again. Let's lay everything out. Wow, our block just got a lot bigger there. Okay, so as you would imagine, right sides together, sewing your 1/4 inch seam allowance, and same over here, pressing your seams open and then sewing your rows together. And then we will have this block here. This is what that will produce. Notice my seams are pressed open. Now we are going to cut again. So let's put this aside. Let's make sure we're oriented upright like we're showing here. Again, we'll be measuring from the side. So let's look at this now. I'm finding it easier with a 2 1/8 inch cut is what I now cut from my side seam. If I do it with the numbers that are closest to me. I know that I have, this is 2 1/2, 2 1/4. That first line right after my 2 on this side is my 2 1/8. So find that and be very comfortable with that before you make that cut. It's not a cut that we do very often. Okay, we know that's a full 2 1/2. My white dashed line takes me to 2 1/4. This line right here, this dash, that small line right there is my 2 1/8. So if you're not comfortable with it, just practice or double check your measurement before you make that cut. Sometimes I'll line up on my 2 1/4 because it's something I'm used to doing. I'm used to seeing that, especially because we've been doing that cut a lot with these blocks. And then I'll just scoot over so I'm not at the 2 1/4, but I'm now at 2 1/8. Let's cut again. And let's turn our block upright. So now we're going to, with the block like this, we've got a cut both here and this direction. All you do is just flip those 2 blocks 180 degrees. So let's just double check and make sure our picture looks correct. It looks right. I would rather check it than have to seam rip it. And as you would expect, we'll go right sides together here, right sides together. Let's put a pin in. And what's fun about this particular block is notice how I don't really have to match any seams here, right? So the only thing I really need to be focusing on is that the beginning and the end match. And I'm not matching any seams along the way. That's kind of nice. I always like that about a block, because most of the time you are having to make sure that you're matching seams. And okay, so let's take that to our sewing machine. Okay, and for this particular block, we'll press this open again. Just makes the block lie so nice and flat when all the seams are open. You don't have bulk going from either one side or the other. It's just evenly distributed. I love that. I love how it's just nice and flat. And you know, I've mentioned this before, when I warm up the seam, it seems like it's just a little more willing, a little more pliable. The fabric will move in the direction that I'd like it to move in. And I didn't, when I was an early quilter, I really didn't do that. And I kind of picked up the habit now a couple years ago, and I really like that habit. So if you are not in the habit of kind of preheating those seams when you are trying to press them one direction or the other or open, give it a try and see if you like it. All right, whenever I do sew something together, I like to reacclimate because I kind of turn things around. I want to make sure that I'm putting the block back together so it's looking like my picture here. And this is what I'm looking for right there. And it looks just like the picture. So as you would expect, we'll go right sides together. I'd pin here. I'll go ahead and just do that. And in this instance, we do have that seam. I'm going to go ahead and press down here, or pin down here rather, first, and I'm going to make sure that I get that pin right in the middle there. Definitely want that coming together, and then pinning here as well. And just like you saw me do, we will sew another 1/4 inch seam allowance and take that to the iron, warm up that seam, and press that open. And I have done that ahead of time just to save us a little bit of time, and that's what the block will look like. Again, you've pressed your seams open. So isn't that so pretty? Of course, you'll make 2 of those, and then 1 block that now has these fabrics, but of course the same construction. Then of course the applique portion is so much fun. We've done a love letter. I love Valentine's Day. In fact, my wedding anniversary is on Valentine's Day. So it's a very special day for me in particular. You'll have your background, your top and your bottom. You'll piece that together, and then your applique goes on just as normal. And as I mentioned, you know, having the kit already cut out with the words love, that'd be a lot of work to trace and cut out on your own. I don't know if it'd look quite as smooth as it does with our beautiful laser cutters that make it just so easy to jump into the fun. You'll applique both ends, stitching that down. Notice we've used some metallic fabric for our love letter, and we have a beautiful gold metallic in our thread set. That's where you might want to consider the thread director, because it helps the thread come off the spool in the direction that it was wound on the spool. Why that's important is it helps reduce breakage. I definitely encourage a Schmetz metallic needle. It's a little bit of a softer, smoother eye, so as the metallic thread passes through the needle during the stitching process, it's less likely to break. Always practice your tension settings, maybe on a scrap piece of fabric. Sometimes you do need to modify your tension just a bit when you're working with the metallic thread. And in the bobbin, I would just use a standard 50 weight. It could even be a white, because that bobbin thread should not be coming to the surface, so you won't be seeing it. But just a fun little thread set and a beautiful table runner. I hope you're enjoying the series. You know we're busy designing the next month for March, and I'll see you on the next Shabby Fabrics video.